You know the red wire has got to be connected to the red wire, and the black wire is connected to the black wire. There's a lot of things, and you also know that do what you're told by the master electrician. So there's a lot of things that you know. Modern scientists claim that everything comes from inside. And if you're going to be a true philosopher, you have to pretend like you don't know anything. Like asked Bishop Sheen, how long did it take you to prepare the conference you gave yesterday? He said, oh, about 50 years. So what do you mean? Well, I had to learn English. I had to learn how to say mama and dada. Had to learn the names for all the various things that I gave the conference about. Had to learn how to spell. We didn't get that far in our class. I had to learn what things are. I had to go to seminary. I had to go to learn philosophy, to learn theology. I had to have experiences. I had to communicate with other people and learn from them. And then I sat down last week and spent 3 hours preparing the class. About 50 years. The fact is that the modern idea is that every science, this is from Immanuel Kant, is completely separate from every other science. And you should never allow the crossing between the sciences. Like, for instance, if you go to college and you're studying philosophy and you're studying theology and you just study it for 6 years, you know what you're not studying? You're not studying nutrition. Therefore, you shouldn't eat during your time at college. You're also not studying health. Therefore, you shouldn't sleep at your time at college. You're not studying social studies. Therefore, you should not be nice to people or talk to them in a suitable way while you're in time of college. The reality is, you can't learn any science without its connection to all the other sciences. You can't do anything without realizing its connection with all the other things. But they taught, several hundred years ago, they started teaching it, no, there's a world of philosophy, and then there's a world of theology, there's a world of botany. Like, for instance, I am an investigator. I know all about murder scenes. How did your grandpa die? I saw a man come in my room and blow grandpa's brains out. How do you know? Were you trained in how to study murder cases? Did you go to school? You're only 7 years old. How can you say you know more about your dad's getting his brains blown out just because you were there and you witnessed it? You didn't go to school to learn how to be an investigator. How do you know what you saw? Well, my grandpa had a really big head and then it was gone. And I watched it get removed. And he did it. The fact is that now they say, no, you're not a philosopher, you're not an investigator, your name isn't Sherlock Holmes. You have no way of knowing what happened. I have to tell you what happened. All the sciences separate. They are not separate. Hence, we have another principle we learn in the seminary. All things are connected in one hierarchy, distinct but not completely separate. I'm not going to run on the board. All things are connected. And for instance, in order to become a saint, Bob cannot become a good saint by being a really nice and pretty girl. Because in order to be a saint, he's got to be a male of the species. He's got to be sanctified as a male. Can't be a saint. In order to be a saint, he also has to be able to breathe. He has to be able to eat. He has to be able to do many things besides just say rosaries. So it is with everything. Any sane man recognizes there's only one universe, there's only one world, and we are in it. And God created it, and God is in it. He's everywhere in it. And there's only one universe that we exist in. And on my great-great-grandpa, whether my name is Aristotle, Plato, or Thomas Aquinas, they had the same great-great-grandpa named Adam. Same great-great-grandpa named Noah. They had the same source, and they were made for heaven. So philosophy and theology can never be separated. They are two distinct sciences in one sense, and that philosophy we consider primarily under the nature of reason, but always enlightened by faith. So, moral philosophy, the Latin book, Grenier, written in 1920s or something like that, talks about human acts. The word moral simply means free choice. All it means is a moral act is a human act. Just bypass some things here. Human act is a free will act. Anything that comes from your free will is a human act. Remember, human beings are different from the animals because of their rationality. So a human being, he acts human whenever he uses his free will. He acts animal whenever he doesn't use his free will. There are some activities that have nothing to do with human acts, such as growth. You just grow. But there are human acts by which you help yourself grow, eating lots of donuts. So there are human acts by which you freely choose to do something. That's human. There's the nutrition, which is we call actus hominis, which is an act of man. So an act of man is not a human act. Well, human beings do it, an act of man. Actus hominis, an act of man. Actus humanus, that's what makes us different. That's what makes us different from the animals. What is the purpose of human activity? Why is it that we act and make free will choices? All free will choices are made for happiness. All human acts are directed to an end. And the end of all free will human acts is happiness. Every human being acts for happiness, or we say also in Latin and English also, beatitude. Beatitude is perfect, complete happiness. Happiness you can be more or less happy. You don't achieve happiness until it is complete. And happiness would just simply bypass some things. Happiness equals the fulfillment of all desires. We want all of our faculties, all of our desires to be fulfilled. The stomach needs food, nutrition, and health. The mind needs truth. The will needs an object of love. We need the fulfillment of all of our desires. Every human choice is made to achieve happiness. Now, there are two happinesses. There are two sides. There's only one happiness, but there's two sides of happiness. There is subjective happiness, and there is objective happiness. Subjective happiness equals the possession of happiness, of the thing that makes happiness. And objective happiness equals the thing that makes us happy. Put objectives on the bottom instead of the top, because subjective happiness is what happiness really is. The formal cause of happiness is essentially subjective happiness. All men are made for subjective happiness, including Lucifer, the angels, including what's his name, Cain, and Judas. Everyone, the damned and the just, are all made to achieve subjective happiness. That's where I possess a thing. Res is just a shorter way of writing thing. Res is thing in Latin. So I have the possession of a thing that's going to make me happy. So with regard to a stomach, happiness is found by the possession of a hamburger. When it comes inside of you, you have happiness. But without the object that is called a hamburger or any kind of food, you cannot have the subjective happiness. But the most important thing is not the hamburger. The most important thing is the possession of the hamburger. If you have food, but you're not able to receive it, it can't cause happiness. There's more food in the world right now in 2025 than there our people to eat it. We have far more food on the planet than there is stomachs to consume that food. But they're still starving people because it's not enough to have enough food. The food's got to get inside to the stomach. And there are millions of people that are not getting the food inside their stomach. So the objective happiness is there, but the subjective happiness is not always there. Subject means thrown under. Object means thrown in front of. Yachere is to throw. Throw under, subject. Throw in front of, object. The object equals the hamburger in front of me. The subject is the same hamburger when it is consumed inside of me. So subject equals inside of myself. Happiness equals subjective happiness is consistent with the fulfillment of all desires. You cannot find happiness by just wanting your desires to be full. The stomach cannot find happiness unless there's food out there. The mind cannot find happiness unless there's truth, or more true out there. The will can't find happiness unless there's something good out there. There has to be objective happiness. And so St. Thomas Aquinas asked the question at the beginning of the Summa about moral theology. Well, why do men do things that they do? That has nothing to do with religion. Every human being is a creature made for happiness, including the damned. The reason why the damned are miserable is because they have they still desire the perfection of happiness. They know where happiness is in the possession of God. They also know with certainty that they will never, ever achieve it. Therefore, they are in pure hell and misery. Their hell is caused because of happiness. There is happiness. They know where it is. They have rejected it. And therefore, they are in absolute misery. There is only one object of happiness, which is God. We won't go through the whole treatise, but St. Thomas Aquinas points out at the beginning of the Suprema Secundae, questions 1 through 5, what is happiness? Fulfillment of all desires, subjective happiness. And what is, by the way, I guess I do this all the time. The seminarians, they do a test every now and then. I often point at the board without looking at it. So sometimes they check, they go, right? So can they get the right spot without looking, right? So, but in any case, the fact is, objective happiness, we all seek after. We need something that's going to make us happy. Generally, men choose about 6 things: money, power, pleasure of the body, pleasure of the soul, and glory, fame, and God. They choose something on the outside that they want to get. And if they get that, they're going to achieve happiness. We give one of the problems, one of the examples that most people like to find happiness in is money. What about money? Can money cause happiness? And the answer is it's impossible. Why? The reason is because happiness is the possession of all the desires. And so the happiness you have here, we always give the table as the example of what a thing is, the 4 causes. You always give a staircase as an example of activity. So all activity is going towards an end. There's the end, which is God. But in order to do something, you have to have an end. But you also have to have, at the beginning, you've got to have principles. Principles means the beginning. In this case, the principle of walking. You got the same end for a bird. Same end for a truck. But you have the end there. Now, for walking, steps are very good to get to your end. These are called steps or means. The means equals the steps. We use the word interchangeably, steps or means, to get from the principles to the end. Now, staircase is very good means for walkers to get to the top. It's not a good mean for birds. If birds try to take the step, they're going to die by about the second or third step. Birds need air. Vehicle needs road. Man needs stairs. So there's the end. That's the first thing. There's the principles. That's the second thing. There's the means. That's the third thing. The principles is down here. Means is in the middle. The end is at the top. Happiness is found in the end. So why is it that money can never cause happiness? Because money equals a means. Money, it has no value in itself. Money is only good to get me something else. Therefore, no matter how much money I have, it cannot cause happiness. It's impossible. It's metaphysically impossible for money to cause happiness, not because the bad things happen because of money. No, because money, by its nature, what is money? It's a perishable good. It only has value when it perishes, called a fungible. It's only good when you lose it. Otherwise, it's of no value whatsoever. It's useless in the bank. It's only useful when you can give it to somebody, give them $7 and they give you a small Starbucks. You have to be able to give it away. So that's a problem, because happiness consists in possession. Possession. Money's happiness only happens when you give it away. So it's not possession. Happiness is found in the end. Money is useless in the end. Money is only good to attain the means. It's a means to get to an end. Therefore, money cannot be the cause of happiness. So you see how we're considering, the way St. Thomas, the way we look at it in the real world, what is money? Why is it that money cannot cause happiness? It's not because bad things happen to people that got a lot of money. The very nature of money, no matter how well you use it, money can only be a means. Therefore, money cannot be happiness. Also, Sacred Scripture tells us, another problem of money, it's the root of all evil. We're attached to money because we think with money we're able to get all kinds of stuff, and then it drags us down. But the consideration of the nature of money. Well, philosophy we consider the scientiam rerum omnium, the science of all things through the altissimas causas, the deepest causes. And that's always, what is it? What is its nature? Why is it that homosexuality is a perversion? Because God made the marital relations so that there can be babies. Union between male and female for babies. If you have a union between male and male, female and female, there is impossibility of fulfilling the purpose for which the act was made. It's metaphysically, it's impossible there to be babies, therefore it's a perversion and it's evil because of the nature of the act. Whereas when you have marital relations with somebody that's not the wife, the act is moral in itself, but it's immoral because it's not the wife. Whereas homosexuality is immoral by its nature. It's a perversion. It's infinitely worse and cannot be compared in any way to fornication or adultery. Zero comparison. Right? So what about money? Can money be the cause of happiness? It is absolutely metaphysically absurd and impossible. Money cannot cause happiness because money is a means and happiness is the end. Because happiness is possession and money has no value unless you got rid of it. Therefore, money cannot be the cause of happiness. The other things cannot be the cause of happiness in general because they only fulfill part of what you need. They don't fulfill everything, whereas happiness is the fulfillment of all desires. There's only one being that can fulfill all desires, and that's God. So we have to have an object of happiness. We have to go over to that object of happiness. So far, the Latin book and English book match, except the crappy translation, a match, Grenier. Now we come to the heresy. And in the book, here's the Latin book, there's the Gringo book, moral philosophy, supposed to be a translation. But in this one here, it says there are two happinesses. There's two of them. There's natural happiness and there's supernatural happiness. So, in fact, there's not natural happiness, supernatural happiness. What is happiness? Happiness is the fulfillment of all desires by possessing the object inside of us. There's only one object. That's God. There's only one way to possess God. That's by fulfilling His laws, worshiping Him, and then He will enter inside of us in a place called heaven. But the English book says there are two happinesses. This is written before Vatican II. The Latin one doesn't say that, but the English one does. There are two happinesses. There's natural happiness for those people that are just living by the natural law. They don't know about Christ. They don't know about the supernatural life. And these people, if they just live the best way they can and live a virtuous life, they achieve happiness. Now, what does it say in the beginning from St. Thomas? Happiness is the possession of the thing that fulfills all desires at the end. Now listen to the English translation. Natural happiness consists in the joy of living a life of virtue. See the problem? The joy of living a life of virtue according to your natural knowledge. This was taught to priests. Now you become a priest, and you meet a pygmy in Africa. You become a priest, and you meet a Protestant that doesn't look like he wants to convert. You meet a nice Muslim. If they live according to their natural knowledge and desires, and try to live a virtuous life the best way they can have natural happiness. And then when they die, God will suck them up into heaven. So now I don't know if I should convert everybody. Now let's go to St. Thomas Aquinas and the truth. The only way you can be happy is by the fulfillment of all your desires in the possession of the thing that makes you happy. And there's only one thing that can make any human being happy, and that's God. Only God can fulfill all desires inside of human beings. Forget about whether they're religious. It doesn't matter if you believe in Jesus or not. Only God can fulfill the happiness inside of a human being. And God gave us supernatural life. And God gave us grace. And God said, if you don't obey me, and you don't follow my laws and join my holy church, you're going to burn forever in hell. Now, how important is it to convert somebody? Now I'm a priest. I meet someone who's a nice Protestant. And I'm a priest. I meet someone who's a nice Muslim. And I'm a priest. I meet somebody who's a nice pantheist or whatever religion he belongs to. What do I need to do? I need to get him out of his unhappiness. How many natural people have lived wonderful lives in their natural religion? All of them have turned to evil everywhere in the world. And they need Christ in order to have happiness. And when we get away from Christ, there is no happiness. God is the only one who can fulfill the desires of a human being. Only God. And God fulfills the desires of a human being when that human being follows His law. And it just so happens that God created Adam with sanctifying grace. He created Adam in the state of grace. He created Adam with infused knowledge. He created Adam with a true religion. And Noah also had the true religion. And all of Noah's children had the true religion. But now, several billion people don't. How'd that happen? Because they walked away from God. They turned from truth to lies. They followed Satan, and they walked away from God, live in mortal sin, die, and go to hell. We must bring these souls back to Christ, to the only object of happiness, which is God, the only object of happiness. So in any case, we go to the moral philosophy. Human beings, God gave free will, intellect and free will. We've got to remember that every human being, his freedom is going to be protected by God. Remember the prodigal son. The prodigal son, when he asked for his inheritance, the father gave it to him. If you decide to walk away from God, he's not going to prevent you from walking away. He gave to us a free will. And free will is very important in the understanding of all of the problems of man. God gave every one of us a free will by which we can freely choose to obey him or freely choose to disobey him. All of our human acts, everything we do, is to receive subjective happiness. There's only one true object, which is God, but we can choose another object in its place, such as pleasure, such as whiskey, such as money, such as a particular person, or any place, or any created thing. We can take something and put it in that place, and we can go after that thing as if it is the only cause of happiness. Like some young people, when they're athletes, they want to achieve the gold medal. They want to achieve the championship. And when they win the championship, they're going to have perfect happiness. And they go after that and do whatever it takes to achieve it. They discover, even when they achieve it, that they haven't found happiness. Why? Because they chose the wrong object. They chose the wrong object. There are not two happinesses. There's not natural happiness and supernatural happiness. There's only happiness, the fulfillment of all desires, which can only be had by the possession of God. Anyone that dies without God living inside of him, which is called sanctifying grace, 100% of those people will be damned. There's no possibility of salvation for them, which is why the Catholic Church teaches extra ecclesiam nulla salus. Outside of the church, there is no salvation. Everyone needs to be Catholic. Everyone needs to enter the church. Why? To achieve happiness. When we step away from the church, we become unhappy. The further we go away from the church, the more unhappy we become. And we see this in individuals and in cultures. As our world becomes more and more away from God, it becomes more and more miserable, more and more unhappy. That's what we're living in. We're living in that time right now. Everyone's becoming more and more unhappy because they are going away from God more and more and getting further and further and further from God. The closer we get to God, the closer we are to the fulfillment of all desires, hence a greater degree of happiness. And the perfect happiness will happen when we possess God inside of us by what's called the beatific vision. Subjective happiness is defined as the beatific vision, by which we see God in our intellect and we possess him in our mind, and it overflows into our hearts and wills, overflows into the body and every part of us, and we have a perfect happiness. Trying to find happiness in anything else is a complete failure. Now, God gave to us human beings free will. Makes us different from all the other creatures. All dogs necessarily are good. Even if you say they're a bad dog, they're not really a bad dog. You're just irritated by the dog. There's nothing wrong with the dog. The problem is us, but not the dog. All dogs are good. All animals are good. All the non-living creatures are good. There's only one creature that was created good by God, called man, and then also the angels, two creatures, who can choose to remain good or to choose to step away from good. These creatures are human beings. We have a free will. We can choose to go towards the good, or we can choose to go away from the good. Now then, there are three ends of our human activity. So what is good? We have here And we define it as human acts are kind of complex. Because when we do an act, good is the same thing as an end. The thing you're going after is called the end or the good. The only difference is the spelling. Right? The good, God, the good, or the end is God. So there are three types of activities of man. And they all happen in every single choice that you make. The first is called monastics. The second is called economics. And the third is called politics. Every act that we do is monastic. Monastic means individual. So here, the individual good. Every act is economic, which means the family good. Economics is the good of the family. And every act is political, which means the society. Every act is monastic, economic, and political. Every single choice. And that there is no separation between these choices. So when every single choice you make affects you as an individual, affects the family, and affects society. It affects all three of them because of the nature of a human being. Remember, a human being is a creature of intellect, will, and body. And he is called a political animal by Socrates. He's a political animal. Two definitions of man, rational animal, but he's also called a political animal because there's something about human beings that unless you're in society, you're not fully human. You take a dog and throw him by himself, he's fine. He doesn't need his neighbors. Birds don't need their neighbors. They are fine. Every creature, even ones that don't like being alone, they're fine. As they are, they don't need their society. But human beings, if you are born and you live without any connection with other human beings, you will never be fully human. You will never learn how to speak. You will never learn how to act as a human being. You will have a rational mind. It'll be perfectly rational. But you will never be able to learn how to use your rational mind and live a rational life. It's impossible. Even hermits who live by themselves, they are political. You know, the famous example of St. Anthony, the first hermit. And he was such a holy monk that the monks gathered around him and said, Anthony, how do you be a hermit? You be a hermit by being alone. How does it start? It starts by leaving me alone. That's how it starts. Good. What's the next point? He was stuck. He had to explain to them the next point. So even though he was a hermit, he was still never alone. And we notice the nature of a human being. We are by nature a political animal. We need society to be human. Every act is monastic, economic, and political. Now, because we're by nature a political animal, the most important thing we do is always political. There are two police. There's the natural, there's a supernatural. Supernatural society. And this is called the church. And then there's the natural society. And this is called the state. Every decision that we make is connected to all these things. That's why every church decision affects the family. Every state decision affects the family. Every church or state decision affects the individual. There are three different things going on every time you make a choice. When you decide to eat breakfast, when the king decides to eat breakfast, it's monastically good because it gives him strength. Economically good because it makes him nicer to his family. It is politically good because he might make a good decision that day because it was a good breakfast. And therefore, his breakfast affects the society, it affects the family, and it affects himself as an individual. And there is never any activity that doesn't have an effect on everyone. Never. Absolutely never. So that, that's why at the end of the world, there has to be a general judgment. There must be a general judgment. When at the end of the world, we will see every individual monastic hidden choice made by every human being from the time of Adam's creation until the end of the world. Because they affected us. They affect us. What we have decided to do affects us. Individually as well as and therefore there must be, because of the nature of us as political human beings, a general judgment. We discover all the decisions that were made, both the good and the bad. Decisions that were made for selfish reasons, decisions that were made because of, if we get it here, decisions that were made for good reasons. No. Hold on here. Stuck in here. Decisions were made for selfish reasons, and decisions that were made for good reasons. Man by nature is political, and it matters what he does. You'll notice in pagan societies, they recognize this truth, and our ancestors used to recognize it. If you want to build a business and make a lot of money for your family, you got to get approval from the state. They got to give you a permit, and you get Padre to come and bless your dog catching business and your lemonade stand, and you make sure you drink some lemonade yourself. There is nothing you can do that's not all three of these things. Remember that Satan says, divide and conquer. That's the way to win a war. Divide and conquer. And now they want you to believe what you do as an individual is your own personal choice. For instance, you might be a girl, and it's your body. Maybe it's your body, but you don't take forceps and put it on your brain and crush it. You don't rip your arms apart. It's the body of a baby that they put forceps in and crush it. That's not you. And it's their arms that are ripped apart inside of an abortion. It's not your body. Furthermore, what about your body? You decide, it's my body, and I'm going to say no to my husband. And I'm not going to have babies. Well, St. Padre Pio talked about that. He said there was a particular lady who went to confession to him, and she confessed all her sins. And did you forget something? Yes, you did. You forgot when you were newlywed, you had an abortion. The baby was going to be a preemie, and she was embarrassed. You had an abortion. Let me tell you about that baby that would have been born about 1905 or 1900 or something. That baby was going to grow up and become a priest. That priest was going to become a bishop. That bishop was going to become a cardinal. That cardinal was going to be elected pope. That pope was going to reform and correct the Catholic Church. He was never born because you had an abortion because you were embarrassed. Not only did nobody notice it, you forgot about it. She forgot that she had had that abortion. That abortion affected, there was a Vatican II because of that abortion. Had that abortion not happened, there wouldn't have been a Vatican II. We're living because of that abortion. We're living out the effects of it. And there are all kinds of things. I used to mention all the time to the, one time pulled over by a Muslim taxi driver, and and he said to tell him, you know what, he would never ever shut up. And I was telling him he was going to hell. That's great. I like to hear that, Father. When I told him he was going to hell, I told him he was thinking Muslim, and I told him every time I told him how bad he was, he thought that was great. I just wanted to get dropped off. He wouldn't drop me off. I mentioned also how that back in 622 AD, there was a guy I really hate. And he was from the town of Medina in Arabia. And he was a buddy of Muhammad. And in 622 AD, there was a battle between the Meccans and the Medinans. And Muhammad was a Meccan, but the Meccans hated him. He got the Medinans to follow him, and he knew that if I can't defeat my own tribe, I'll never get any respect. So the Meccans said, if we don't kill Muhammad, this is going to be a pain in the neck we're never going to get away from. So they fought a battle, and the Meccans said in the battle, we're not here to win a battle. We're not here to defeat the Medinan tribe. We're here to kill Muhammad. So there was a battle. In the battle, Muhammad was wounded multiple times, and he was so weak that he was on his horse, and he had his sword across the horse, but he couldn't even lift his sword. And he wasn't strong enough even to guide his horse. So his horse started to wander away by himself, away from his other Medinan soldiers. And a huge monster of a Meccan saw him and said, that's Muhammad. He drove after him to kill him. But there was another Medinan soldier. That's the guy I hate. There was another Medinan soldier whose name we don't know. He was also wounded, and he didn't have his sword. But he was a little stronger, and he was on his horse. And he saw the Meccan going to kill Muhammad. He drove his horse full speed. At the last moment, he got in between the horse of the Meccan and Muhammad. And the Meccan went to chop Muhammad in half, and he jumped off the horse, and the sword caught him instead and killed him. But it was such a powerful blow, it went through him and hit Muhammad anyway. Muhammad fell off his horse and laid on the ground, and the Meccan, cut in half, laid on top of him. After the battle, they said, I killed Muhammad. The Medinans left the battlefield. The Meccans went to look for the body of Muhammad. They didn't find him. They said, somebody must have taken his body. They left. The Medinans came back to pick up their dead. They picked up this dead guy who was cut in half. When they picked him up, there was Muhammad laying under him, still alive. I hate that jerk. Because if that jerk didn't jump in front of that sword in 622 AD, I wouldn't have to deal with that stinking Muslim taxi driver in 1999. So the fact is that we are affected by decisions that are good and decisions that are bad, and even monastic decisions. We don't know the name of that guy. But monastic decisions and economic decisions changed the politics of society for good and for bad. Hence, there must be a general judgment at the end of the world to say, how did my choices affect politics? They did. Back in 1968, 6,000 priests in Spain wrote to the Pope, Paul VI, and they said to him, we 6,000 priests just from the country of Spain, here you're making a new mass. We don't like it. We're against it. And our people don't like it. They don't want it. We won't accept it here in Spain. In 1969, the new mass came out. 6,000 of those 6,000 priests celebrated the new mass. Every single one of them. Imagine they said, I'm not going to do it. The new mass would have been stopped. Because we make choices that affect society. Human beings make monastic, economic, and political choices. Every choice is monastic, economic, and political. Economic does not mean how much money does it cost. The economy means the good of the family. Monastics means the good of the individual. Mono means one, the good of the individual. Politics means the good of society. Now, as we travel through the world, there's going to be times when there's a conflict between the society or political good, the economic or the family good, the monastic and the individual or the individual good. Then what are you going to do? Without anyone telling us, we know what to do. We know that the political good takes precedence over the economic good. That's why he would say, remember that you got to send your girls off to war because, now the girls go off and fight. And don't forget, did you thank them for their service? The fact is, you know that when there's a war and the country is at stake, you got to send your young men off and the husbands off to die. And if they die, that's fine. Less headaches for the wife. And it's a very great good for the society. Because the society is more important. And it's something that you don't have to be told. It's a natural thing to know. However, in our world today, I remember hearing many times from soldiers in the last 20 years, the most important thing is my life and the life of my men. Well, if that's the case, leave the Army. It's really healthy to be a manager at Subway. I recommend it. Don't eat the food, but other than that, it's pretty healthy. If you want to be healthy and protect your men, don't join the Army. The Army is not for health and protection of the men. The Army is for the health and protection of the society to the detriment of the men. They're supposed to die that the country might live. They're supposed to protect the country and not themselves. They're supposed to protect the king and not themselves. The widows and the orphans and not themselves. They are absolutely last in the importance. Just like a firefighter goes into a fire, who's important? The baby, the people in the fire, not the firefighter. If one has to die, you take the baby and throw him out the window to your buddy and you die. You're supposed to know that before you become a firefighter. You're supposed to know that before you join the Army. And it's something natural because we creatures are creatures that are political by nature. And we know that the politics, the society, is more important than myself. Hence, why become a priest? Why join the Army? Why become the head of Ted's Lemonade Stand? Because lemonade is important for people to survive in the summertime. Because the Army is important to protect the country. Because the priest is needed to save souls and to spread the honor and glory of God throughout the world. It is not for the priest to become a priest for himself. All three goods must be present, the monastic, the economic, and the political. But there's a hierarchy between the goods. Political first, economic second, and monastic third. There's going to be and all of our choices must be done in that way. God gave us the free will so that we can choose to invert the order. We can. It's very possible to do that. We don't have to do things the way that they are supposed to be done. That till God made a society which is political, economic, and monastic. And these are the three stages of ethics. You study monastic, economics, and politics. There are two perfect societies in which human beings live. One is called the church, which is the complete society, which has all the tools it needs in order to be able to help us get to heaven. Another is called the state, which is a perfect society, which has the tools it needs to help foster the common good, the good of this country as a whole. And that there is one imperfect society, which means incomplete society, which is called the family. The family is much like an individual. It cannot stand on its own. The individual, the family, must belong to the state. The family must belong to the church. The family is a building block, like a stone of the church, and a stone of the wall of the church, and a stone of the wall of the state. The family must consider the greater good of society. In the last 300 years, there was a perversion. It's not a very complicated perversion. It's very simple. Modern man teaches we are made for ourselves, to choose our own happiness and to prepare our own happiness as we freely choose. That's what Lucifer told Eve a long time ago. You don't have to follow the rules of happiness given to you by God. He's not giving you the knowledge of evil and good. He only gave you the knowledge of good. But if you get the knowledge of evil also, you will be able to make your own rules and make your own happiness. You're a slave to God. Be the maker of your own happiness. Eve decided to listen to Lucifer and then convinced her husband to do the same thing, and sin entered the world. St. Augustine put it together in an axiom, and Pope Pius IX quotes that in his Humanum Genus, his encyclical on Freemasonry. St. Augustine said, "Two loves built two cities. The city of the love of God, love of self, leading even to the despising of God, and the city of the love of God, leading even to the despising of self." Two loves built two cities. All that's happening in the last several hundred years is Satan is building the city of pandemonium or hell. It is built on the love of self. You're taught that. Be an individual. Be your own self. Choose your own identity. Choose your own happiness. All it is a construction site in which we are constructing the city of Satan. And there's a city. The other city is the city of God. It's also a city. All of our free will choices are monastic, economic, and political, and we are either citizens of the city of God or citizens of the city of hell. The city of hell is do what thou wilt to be the whole of the law. The city of God is choose the love of God over the love of self. So if there's a conflict between the love of God and self, God wins. And we are constructing the city of God. Both are political cities. They are politics. They are cities. We're now at the time where the city of the devil is under its almost complete construction. But every human being must choose between monastic and economic and political choices. Political being primary, economic secondary, and monastic the least important of the three. And yet they all go together. What is truly politically good is also truly economically good. What is truly economically good is also truly monastically good. For instance, when a person dies for his country, it's a glory to the country, it's a glory to the family, and it's a glory to himself. It's a good for all three. When he does something evil, it's an evil to the country, it's an evil to the family, and an evil to himself. Every choice we make, small and great, is monastic, economic, and political. We divide our moral choices into these three categories of monastic. There's a section of monastics, a section of moral philosophy, which is devoted to the monastics primarily, and then to economics, and then to politics. But all three are a necessary part of human life. We're in the time now where we're creating a society that is political society of the preparation for the kingdom of the Antichrist. It's been a long time in preparation. But it's a society of individuals who are political creatures who have to make choices. And God is never going to force us to choose to go one way or the other. We are going to have a free will choice to go one way or the other. And then, I don't know if Chris did, we'll say a prayer in a bit. Did Chris succeed in getting my papers over here? He came in a minute ago. Did he succeed? Mr. Doherty came in. I forgot to ask him when he came. So anyway, it's 3:30 now. We'll take a few minute break here. And then it's getting hotter in here. Not a little bit, but it's not horrible, I guess. Just, yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, Mr. Doherty was there. I don't know if he has my papers or not. So I want to go to a couple drawings there, but maybe we'll do that tomorrow. So in any case, we'll take a station break here for a few minutes and just say a quick prayer. All right. In the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. St. Vincent and Pfeiffer, St. Jude, Lady of Victory, Lady of Sorrows, Lady of Christians, St. Ignatius. Okay, very good. So about 15 minutes, I guess.